Move out of your comfort zone. You can only grow if you're willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when you try something new. Brian Tracy. There's a strange pattern a lot of us fall into that doesn't feel like fear when we're living it. We all have a running to-do list in our heads, and many of the tasks are simple, like sending a routine email or picking up groceries on the way home. But if you take a closer look at that list, there's usually one or two items you keep pushing off until tomorrow. But it's always tomorrow. It's those things we have excuses for. I'll do it once I know more. I'm just not ready yet. Somebody else would probably be better at that. It's a very normal way to protect ourselves from stress, because we like feeling capable, and we naturally lean toward the spaces where we already know exactly what we're doing. But if you really look at those avoided tasks, the delay isn't actually about a lack of time. It's about how those tasks make you feel. That slight pit in your stomach or that subtle wave of anxiety isn't a sign that you should stop. It should be more like a starting gun going off. When you avoid a challenge because it makes you feel out of your depth, you aren't just delaying a task, you're actively limiting your own potential. You're letting a temporary feeling dictate the boundaries of what you allow yourself to achieve. The truth is, that exact thing that you're running from is usually the exact thing you need to do next. The discomfort you're trying to escape isn't a barrier blocking your path. It's the compass showing you where to go. But why does that little wave of anxiety hit us the second that we step outside what we know? It's because when you face a task that feels completely out of your depth, your brain doesn't see a career opportunity or a moment for personal growth. It just feels the tension. It registers that uneasy, unqualified feeling using the same manners and methods it recognizes when you're in physical danger. And because of that, our natural instinct is to back away and find safety. You subconsciously convince yourself that if an environment makes you feel that anxious, it must mean that you aren't ready or that you're doing something wrong. But this is where the wires get crossed. Your brain is misinterpreting beneficial data as a threat. That emotional friction isn't a red light. It's not a stop sign or a sign telling you to turn around. It's more like a diagnostic readout. It's showing you the intersection where your current skill set ends and where your baseline needs to expand. When you feel out of your depth, it doesn't mean you're a fraud or that you're bound to fail. It just means you've identified your current boundary. So to lead yourself effectively, you have to stop treating that internal noise as a stop sign. It's simply just information. It's letting you know where the perimeter is weak and where you need to build the strength. Then, once you realize that anxiety is just a byproduct of learning, it loses its power over your choices. You can acknowledge the feeling without letting it hold the steering wheel. And navigating that internal static is simply the cover charge for moving forward. However, once we understand that anxiety is just data, we have to look at what we usually do with it. Most of the time, our first reaction is to protect our ego. We hate feeling clumsy, and we absolutely dread looking like we don't know what we're doing. So to keep our self-image intact, we'll start engineering our lives to avoid any situation that might expose our gaps. We turn down roles, we stay quiet in meetings, or we pass off assignments to somebody else. But there's hidden costs to that self-protection. When you prioritize looking competent over actually becoming competent, you trap yourself in a box that you build for yourself. You end up trading your long-term capability just to secure your emotional comfort. And it's an easy trap to fall into because it feels like a safety net in the moment. Because nobody likes to feel exposed or out of their depth. So we tell ourselves these stories to justify why we step back. We say we weren't a good fit for the project, or that we're just focusing on our core strengths. But be honest, it's usually just a defense mechanism to keep yourself from making a mistake and bruising your ego. Your strength and growth comes from calling yourself out on that type of behavior. It's realizing that your ego is a terrible advisor when it comes to your growth. And if you only step into environments where you're guaranteed to excel, you aren't leading yourself. It's actually hiding. Real progress requires a willingness to put your pride on the line and accept the awkwardness of not knowing something. It's about realizing that protecting who you are today always comes at the expense of who you could become tomorrow. And this tendency to protect our ego becomes especially dangerous when you've already achieved a decent level of success. It leads into what can be called an expertise trap. When you've spent years becoming effective and capable in one specific area, you get used to being the person with all the answers, the person people come to for advice. You know the systems inside and out, and your confidence is tied directly to that mastery. But then a new opportunity comes along, a higher level leadership role, a completely different department, or a shift in how your industry operates. Then suddenly, the skills that made you successful in the past might not seem like they're enough to allow you to succeed in this new environment. But to take that next step, you have to be willing to look unpolished, ask questions that seem basic, and operate with a high degree of uncertainty. And yes, the psychological cost of feeling like a beginner again can feel way too high, which is where many talented people freeze. Instead of leaning into challenge, they fool themselves into over-relying on what they already know and refusing to face the learning curve, even though they're more than capable of learning, but they're just being controlled by fear and their ego. And this is how highly capable people end up plateauing. They allow their past achievements to become an anchor that keeps them from moving forward. Professional maturity means accepting that every new level of impact demands a temporary drop in your comfort. You have to be willing to trade the safety of being the expert for the stress of being the student. Because if you don't, your hard-earned expertise isn't protecting you. It can just lock you into a version of yourself that'll slowly fall behind. So when you choose to stay inside that zone of expertise, it'll feel like you're just maintaining the status quo. You'll probably think that you're keeping things steady until you feel a bit more motivated or less stressed. But the reality of capability is that it never stays perfectly still. Every time you turn away from a challenge, those challenges that make you anxious, your confidence doesn't just hold the line, it retreats. Think of it like a muscle that gradually weakens when it's not put under a constant load. By consistently opting out of tasks that push your boundaries, you're teaching your brain that anything outside your immediate comfort zone is too dangerous to handle. The boundary of what feels safe moves inward, making even ordinary responsibilities start to feel heavy and overwhelming. Then what was once a minor inconvenience becomes a major roadblock, simply because you've lost the tolerance for challenge. This is the compounding penalty of avoidance. For example, the hard question you delay today isn't just waiting for you tomorrow. It's actually gathering more emotional burden while you wait. Or the technical skills that you bypass, or the leadership roles that you decline, become twice as intimidating the next time they come around. However, breaking out of that cycle means understanding that avoiding discomfort is a losing strategy over the long term. You can't hide your way to resilience. The only way to keep your world from getting smaller is to consistently and intentionally test the edges of your capability. By forcing yourself to operate right at that friction point, you stop the retreat and start reclaiming your territory. It's about building a standard where your actions are driven by your goals, not by the shifting limitations of your fears. Then as you start pushing back against those boundaries, you'll eventually run into a subtle form of self-sabotage. You'll feel a sense of apprehension, and your mind might try to convince you that this isn't just normal discomfort. It's truly misalignment. You'll rationalize to yourself that if this were the right path, it wouldn't feel this draining. Or maybe this role just doesn't fit my authentic self. It's a powerful excuse because it sounds deeply reflective. But most of the time, it's just fear wearing a mask. So to break through this, you have to learn how to distinguish between the discomfort of growth and true misalignment. True misalignment is a slow drain on your purpose. It's when your actions don't align with your core values, leaving you feeling empty, even if you do succeed. Whereas growth discomfort, though it also feels heavy, clumsy, and uncertain, it's simply the weight of your thoughts trying to build new pathways while you build new skills. It doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It just means the path you're on is steep. But when you mistake that heavy, awkward feeling for a sign that you should quit, you rob yourself of the breakthrough that you're looking for. Growth is supposed to feel unsteady at first. So if you wait for a challenge to feel smooth and natural before you commit to it, you'll be waiting forever. Taking ownership of your outcomes means accepting that you don't need to feel perfectly aligned or completely comfortable to execute a new task. You just have to be willing to carry the weight of the uneasiness until your capability catches up. And once you stop treating every wave of doubt as a sign to pivot, you gain a competitive advantage. You realize that the heavy feeling isn't a warning to turn around. It's just the pressure of progress. At the end of the day, the challenges we avoid don't simply vanish because we look the other way. They remain right where we left them, quietly marking the exact spot where we decided to stop growing. We can dress up that decision in whatever disguise that makes us feel better in the moment, but the reality doesn't change. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't a matter of luck or timing. It's a direct reflection of how much friction you're willing to tolerate. Progress has a very simple ledger, and it doesn't factor in your doubts, your excuses, or how qualified you feel at the time. It only records what you actually did when the pressure mounted and the path looked difficult. When you strip away all the noise, the choices that define your standard are usually the ones made in those quiet, uncomfortable moments, right before you decide to either lean in or step back. You don't need a significant paradigm shift to alter your trajectory. You just need to take a hard, honest look at the task you've been pushing off until tomorrow. Then the next time you feel that familiar internal hesitation, don't look for a way around it. Step straight into it, because that's exactly where your capability thrives. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes with me. Until next time, stay sharp, stay grounded, and keep showing up.